Okay, breaking news. Very popular at the moment is the poor Uber drivers who've been, I think, stitched up, for a want of a better word, by TFL in relation to not renewing Uber's license on various grounds, which we'll come to. Now, I don't know much about Uber. It's on the periphery. I don't really use them. My wife uses them, but I don't use them. And as a cynical person, I was like, haven't they just made illegal taxi drivers legal? Is basically how I looked at it. I mean, I think as far as I'm aware, anybody can become an Uber driver. I've done a little bit of watching on YouTube, and apparently it's not quite as crass as that. There are background checks and criminal checks, and you've got to have a certain standard of license, certain amount of insurance. So they're trying to get the kind of people working for them that they obviously fits in with their corporate branding, corporate image, and corporate responsibility. That they'll have to their customers. So it's not as bad as I thought it was, thankfully. Now it turns out that because TFL have not looking to renew the license for Uber within London, which we're going to get to later, it means that up to 40,000, low paid, low skilled people, probably the most vulnerable day to day living people, are in a position now that they're going to have obviously financial insecurity, which is a bit of an issue. I think morally that's a bit of an up yours to a load of people who rely on an established brand now, such as Uber, to put food on their family's table. And then obviously you've got the black cabbies all rejoicing, which we'll come to later as well in this little Channel 4 clip we're going to go through. And basically the cabbies are complaining. They're right to complain, but essentially, cabbies have what I would call a monopoly on the travel within central London, and they've had it for eons. Okay, so it's what this action is kind of protectionist. Well, it is protectionist, not kind of protectionist. It is protectionist, and also protectionist encourages monopolies. Okay, so there's a monopoly going on here. I mean, there's other forms of transport in London, all controlled by TFL, funnily enough. So technically, the monopoly is TFL, because you've got like buses, tubes, and trains, and then you've got the taxis. Probably then you've got licensed drivers as well, private hire licensed vehicles, or drivers. But the taxis themselves are obviously very upset about Uber, the fact that any Joe Blogs can pick up an app, meet the criteria, and then hey, I'm a GPS specialist taxi driver. So obviously they're up in arms because competition, and no one seems to like competition in this day and age, because competition benefits the customer. It doesn't benefit the long-standing taxi drivers. And governments are always talking about how good and positive competition is, and how they want to market that obviously there's a lot of competition, a lot of innovation, prices, because it's good for consumers or customers, whichever way you want to pigeonhole these people. So I'm very much I'm very much anti-monopoly. I wouldn't say I'm pro-competition, but obviously in this case, when you've got 40,000 people being chucked out on the street and saying, because some bureaucrats or Jobsworth think it's the right thing to do on health and safety grounds. And I'm just going to go over this article. We're going to watch it. It's only 7 minutes. And we're going to see what I would think as a lawful solution to this very much legally entangled nonsense problem. Let's go.
Drive with us, says Uber. Just not in London, say TFL. Today, the £1 billion company, matching passengers with private drivers, found its days numbered when Transport for London revoked its licence to operate in the city.
So how does TFL, or Transport for London, how does it decide, how did it get the authority to decide who is and who isn't in their little club of who can drive in this area? That's what I want to know. Now, maybe you want to research that, because I can't be asked. It's not my problem. But where did they get their authority? Because surely centralised government, it's central government, Westminster, as in the city of Westminster. So I was trying to tell this in my other video. You got Westminster's the city. You got Southwark, and there's Southwark, South Bank, Southwark. These are all technically their own separate cities. Westminster, Southwark. Yeah. So, I mean, the City of London, as I also described, is the square mile. So, are they talking about the City of London, or are they talking about a mysterious entity known as London, which technically is just like stuff that happens to be in and around these other cities? You know, it's more of a common tongue description of like that place on planet Earth, as opposed to actually being a formal city or a formal area. But I may be wrong in that. Maybe there is a formal declaration that Westminster is no longer Westminster; it's Westminster in Lane, and now in name, sorry, and now London is officially Westminster, or Westminster is now officially London. Southwark is officially London. Because I find that hard to believe because they have Southern Crown Court, you got Westminster Magistrates Court, you got all these courts all over the place, which are very specific to their areas, which is how it's always been in crime and law. If I do a crime in Westminster, I don't get dragged up to, I don't know, Hemel Hempstead to face trial. You face trial in the area where either the crime was committed or where the defendant has lived, depending if it's criminal or civil. So yeah, this is an interesting. Where does that control? Where does that jurisdiction come from?
On the grounds that
not fit and proper to hold a private hire operator licence. Uber's approach and conduct demonstrate a lack of corporate responsibility in relation to a number of issues which have potential public safety and security implications.
Bing! That was beautiful. Well read, sir. So at least we've got a quote directly from Transport for London here. Not fit and proper. That is a hell of a thing to say. Now, you can say that about Uber, because Uber is a legal entity. So according to our legal definition of fit and proper, you Uber, the corporation, are not fit and proper to hold a private hire license. Now, you could argue Uber's a legal entity. It can't privately hire things without people anyway. So it's kind of almost like a play on words in that respect. This isn't fit and proper. If you stuck the incorporation certificate in the car, in a driver's seat in a car, they wouldn't go anywhere. Of course, it's not fit and proper for Uber to hold a private hire license. That's a completely correct statement. But all the drivers that have been qualified are more than fit and proper because A, they're compos mentis, they have their people and their license and they know how to drive. They've gone through all the checks, background checks, all the criminal checks, all the driving checks, insurance check, everything. All right, they're all there at a certain standard of being so that they can qualify to work for Uber. Uber's approach and conduct. So Uber, the legal corporation, obviously abbreviating that to lack of corporate responsibility in relation to a number of issues which have potential public safety and security implications. Okay, now Uber obviously punts out the business for people who are referred to often as drivers. Okay, so but the people at the end of the day acting as drivers. Now, if a lunatic driver decides to go off the wall and do something crazy, and it just happens to affect a passenger or a rider, I think they use the term in Uber, then that's basically between the driver and the passenger. Now, Uber facilitated that meeting, so obviously they are in a position of duty of care and responsibility to ensure that doesn't happen, which is what they do in their vetting in the first place. But obviously, if it does happen, they should come in and just make sure that everything's put back all square, all neat and tidy as best they can. And then if there's any kind of legal or private prosecution, well, the private prosecution would be against the driver because it's the driver who's done the crime. The man acting as driver has done potentially the harm, the trespass, whatever you want to call it, the wrongdoing. So, to say that Uber's approach to corporate, again, they're talking about the legal entity. So, specifically who has fucked that up? Excuse my French. Within Uber, okay. So again, you got to be careful of people using this public health and safety is everything, right? Health and safety is so important, but we don't live in a pre-crime society, all right? Like I was talking about with that cyclist. Yes, you can buy a stupid bike with no front brakes and you can cycle your heart out going through the streets of London or around the city of London. So you could go through the streets of a capital and crash into people and kill them. Yes, I mean, he obviously didn't have it in his capacity mentally to think this could be dangerous. Maybe I should wear a helmet. Maybe I should wear a high-vis jacket. Maybe I should have a bell. Screw the brakes are last concern. But there are other things you can do to ensure that speeding through as fast as you can through the streets of London on a bike and with the potential of colliding with a bus, car, taxi, or even an individual, you got to think a little bit ahead. You got to use your brain, because ultimately we are all individually liable for our own individual actions. Okay, very important this. So then, if I'm liable for my own individual actions, it's not upon every other it's not upon an entity to define what I can and can't do. It's a, you can't do that, buddy. Well, I can do it, but I will bear the liability. All right, unless it's like walking around the street with like a fistful of grenades or something stupid, like something clearly like a breach of the peace, then obviously not. But I mean, getting in a car and offering a fellow man a lift. Hey, buddy, would you like a lift? Oh, I'd love a lift. How did you find me? That's the question here. Now, how do these people find passengers? How do they find drivers to operate the Uber system going forward? But to use health and safety as a means of saying, it's a good fob off, basically. It's like, it's pre-crime, it's trial before jury, it's prejudice, basically, in its simplest terms. And, ignore it.
Alexander has been driving with Uber for 4 years. What do you do next if Uber is no agency?
I don't know.
He doesn't know. He's fucked. And I'm sorry my French again, but it's serious for that guy. He's been quite happily driving around, helping out people, a nice, safe little job. Well, he thought it was safe, and now obviously because of the whims of some legal oversight or overseers, then he's now screwed. Now that potentially could be a claim from himself, saying, "Who is in charge of TFL? How are you going to compensate me now that I can't earn a living? Am I liable for any harm? Have I been prejudged? Have you prejudged me? I don't care what my employer's doing up, but now you need to give me a temporary license so that I can operate within London." There has to be negotiation here. You can't just blanket leave 40,000 people on the street with no income. So that could be one aspect, is that these drivers individually contact TFL and ask TFL, you have a responsibility now. You have a duty of care to the man who acts as a driver and relies on income from taking people from point A to point B. What are you going to do now to compensate my income? Because if I can't put food on the table because of your decision, then I'm screwed. So that you could look at it from that. That would be very much a private prosecution, yourself versus whoever's the head of TFL. You need to look at the man on top of. You write a letter, 40,000 letters to that guy saying, hey buddy, you just taken on one hell of a liability.
He says he's a loser, but there are winners.
Church bells will be rung and Te Deums will be sung throughout the land.
No, not throughout the land, buddy. Just for you, closed community of very specific niche market taxi drivers. Now, I know taxi drivers come from all over the southeast and all the surrounding area of London to drive all the way in to do some taxi work because it's good money if you can get to work. But to say that church bells are going to be ringing because 40,000 muggins have been kicked out of your turf, that's a protectionist. As long as they get fucked and I'm okay, it's so self-preserving. What happens to this being a Christian land?
Unsurprisingly, the movement
a little giggle at the end.
Upbeat with black cab drivers. The trade had lobbied politicians for years to get Uber banned, and it does not take a rocket scientist to work out why.
My takings are down quite considerably because of the competition.
And roughly how much a week have you lost out on?
Roughly about £150 a week.
The man leading their campaign is Steve McNamara. There are tens of thousands, millions of people even, who enjoy using Uber service, and they trust Uber service. So if the market says that there is demand, surely this is what should count.
Right, so what you're saying to me is that public demand should override public safety.
Well, yeah, I think the guy's going to come to it. Public demand should override public safety. So this is the safety screen, all right? Until something's happened, there is no concern. We could all walk around with petrol cans on our necks because, we like to fill up our car at a whim. In fact, we've got petrol tanks in our cars, that could explode if you have a crash or there's a spark or, your petrol stations. The need overrides the risk, and the risk is minimal at a petrol station in a car. So the idea that an individual, Uber drivers are a bunch of fucking rapists and killers and murderers and all, yeah, of course they all are, but they all are not. Until they do it, they are completely, they should be treated as adults and allowed to operate in such a manner. Now, if it becomes a massive crime spree of Uber drivers stealing away women at night or whatever, then obviously that can be taken into account. But has that happened? Is there something that we're not aware of? We'll come to that in a minute.
So as long
But
as
I'm saying that
long as
surely the
it's-
two are related. So if the
the
public
two-
didn't feel that Uber was safe, they wouldn't be spending their money with them, and surely they should therefore be allowed to use that service.
Right, many people will want to buy a T-shirt for £1 that's made by a small child in China. Doesn't make it right. It's
It's not about right and wrong. It's about choice. If I want to go to, he's slagging off cheap clothes imports for people who can't afford expensive garments or live on a budget, like maybe an Uber driver who's no longer working, you know. And if I want to go to what's that shop, Primani. If I want to go to Primani and go in there and get a T-shirt for £1, that's a choice. They're not closing down Primani because, like, this guy reckons they're made in China by sweatshop kids. I mean, that's one hell of an accusation to make anyway. But so what? Your moral compass is your own moral compass. As long as everyone's got paid along the line, it's not slavery.
morally wrong. It's morally wrong
Why is it morally wrong?
to expect an Uber driver to take you, across London an hour's journey.
It's morally wrong to expect an Uber driver. He's happy to do it. He's getting paid. The passenger's happy to capitalise on his low cost of transportation. Why is that morally wrong? That's business, my friend.
And charge you £15, of which he gets £10.
James is usually
How is that making capitalisations morally wrong?
in
Well, yes, it is technically, but that's just how opportunity arises and wealth is distributed.
Uber driver. Today he
And the end user benefits the most. The benefit is for the end user, the customer.
is an Uber passenger. He took the company to court to be recognised as a worker, and
So this guy is obviously, I don't know, a lawyer. He's taken Uber to court to become known as an employee, which I find is stupid. Why don't you just be a contractor?
therefore entitled to sick pay,
So he wants sick pay and holiday pay and all the other gubbins that comes with being an employee.
holiday pay, and a minimum wage.
Well, then he's not a contractor, I would say. Get him. Okay, fine. You want to be an employee? Sign this contract. We're going to take off all those benefits for you. But you can't be. Your contractor is not an employee.
He won, but he says today's news is bad news for Uber's drivers.
The reasons they've given for delicensing Uber still don't address the core issue. So the core issue is the encroachment that minicabs now have on the black taxi market. We need to reform the regulations to address that, and worker rights. None of those was given as a reason for delicensing Uber. So the stage is set now for Uber clones to run in and do exactly the same thing again.
Bingo. All right. So he's saying, from his point of view, workers' rights and any old taxi firm with this software can come running in. Doesn't have to necessarily be Uber. Presumably they'll be kicked out anyway, or they won't be granted, because it seems like TFL have gone very protectionist with the black cabs. Now I don't see, this guy's confusing the word contractor with employee. Contractor, you take it or leave it. A contractor. I mean, the contractors like builders, plumbers, all these people are contractors. And seeking employee rights means you're not a contractor. It means you're gonna put the burden of your own cost of living onto the onto the company. So that might be a benefit to some people, might not be. This guy wanted to become an employee of Uber, but if you're a contractor, there's negotiation room as to what you do. I mean, I know it's very much a one size fits all in terms of the contract of Uber, but have you tried renegotiating? Have you got together as a union and said, you know what are you getting and what are we getting? Let's all get together, have an Uber union just to keep those guys in check.
And the Mayor hasn't addressed that. That's the most important issue.
Uber say they plan to appeal today's decision, but if they do not succeed, what happens to the 40,000 estimated drivers who rely on it?
Right, just pause there. I've said many times, appealing is a waste of time. Don't ever do it. Just accept it. Yeah, okay, you banned us, great. So, you're not going to get a legal. I mean, all right. The appeal hasn't gone through. I put my money down. The appeal will fucking. It won't work. They won't get it on appeal.
With no workers' rights.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Fred Jones, who is Uber's head of cities. I put to him some of the complaints levelled against the company.
Let me take you through some of those. So first of all the drivers that use the app are licensed by Transport for London. They all have the same background checks done by the DBS service, and it's Transport for London that decide whether a driver is fit and proper or not to transport the public.
So he's using their own words against them. Remember, TFL saying that, but TFL didn't say the drivers aren't fit and proper. They're saying Uber. Okay, it's very specific. They're saying Uber, the company, the legal entity of Uber is not fit and proper. Well, you can't really argue with that because it's a bloody piece of paper fiction.
So you're passing the buck to them?
And then they sign up to the app.
You're passing the buck to them, then?
Passing the buck, yeah, she's quite passing the buck to them. No, he's just stating facts.
Also pioneered a number of safety features, such as all trips tracked by GPS, which aren't available anywhere else in the industry.
But you are basically passing the buck to the regulator on background checks there.
Well, Uber does not conduct the background check.
Touché. Well said, sir. You know, they're using an outside contractor to do the background check, to ask the police. The potential driver has to agree to Uber to go to a third party to do a background check, saying, hey, cops, is this guy a dodgy dude? And then the cops will say, no, he's clear. Okay, great, a background check's fine. You can potentially, that hurdles out the way, you can be a driver potentially. So that's a silly question that he's obviously provided. Ask a silly question. Get a silly answer.
What is very clear is the Metropolitan Police have deep concerns about your reporting of criminal offences. I mean, let me just quote to you from the...
Your reporting of criminal offences. Well, it's not up to Uber. I don't know where Uber has the duty. If you're a victim of some sort of Uber driver assault or whatever, theft, whatever happens because you think an Uber driver's done it, that's your responsibility to go to the cops and say, hey, that guy there, that muggins in that car, who was acting as an Uber driver, has done me wrong. Now you have a claim against him, and if he was acting as an Uber driver at the time, you then have a claim against Uber for the wrongful acting of their driver. Okay. It seems like two claims, but it's one claim, just it has two facets to it.
The Met Police taxi team, they say that a man who worked for Uber was allowed to stay despite an allegation of sexual assault, and he then went on to stay despite an allegation.
An allegation of sexual assault. An allegation is pile of crap, right? If he was found guilty, if he was had a judgment of sexual assault, then obviously he'd be out of there. But with an allegation, Uber's more than likely to say, look, we've had an allegation. You know, the insurance can't cover you while this allegation is going on. You need to come off the road, or we can't allow you to operate. But an allegation is not. It's just that. It's just a word. I mean, I can allege this girl's hair's terrible.
Of sexual assault, and he then went on to commit another more serious attack on a woman in his car. And I just want to quote to you from the inspector there. Had Uber notified police after the first offence, it would be right to assume that the second would have been prevented. That's quite a damning charge, isn't it?
So if I was Uber or any company, if someone's done something wrong to you, you go straight to the police. If it's a criminal matter, you take that, you get your facts, you get your evidence, you get your story right, and you report it to the police. I don't know how you would want an intermediate. I wouldn't trust anyone to report. You know, if I got robbed, I wouldn't phone up my mobile phone company and says, "Oh, they've nicked my phone. I feel really bad. What are you going to do about it?" I mean, the most a phone company can do is cancel your phone or block it. You go to the police. I mean, if there's a complaint raised from a customer to Uber about, oh, your driver did this, say, have you told the police yet? We recommend you go straight to the police. That's what you should do. If someone's being a complete moron about it, you just say, if you've been sexually assaulted and you believe that's to be true, take it to the cops. Yeah, don't take it to a corporation that deals with driving people from A to B. That's silly.
So we were surprised by the letter written by the Met Police because we have a very good working relationship with them. We have a dedicated team that works directly with the Met Police to help them respond to any inquiries.
So what happened in that case then?
Well, as we pointed out in our response to that letter, the incidents described were not sexual assaults. One was holding a can of identifier spray, and the other one was when the driver hugged a passenger. Clearly, this was in breach.
Isn't it for the police to determine what is a sexual assault?
No, it's not for the police to determine what a sexual assault is. It's up to the victim to decide this person's raped me, this person's robbed me, this person's beaten me up. Okay, they will take that to the police, and the police will say, okay, we're going to prosecute based on the information given by what they like to call the victim.
Not for Uber to determine what is or is not a sexual assault.
Well, in this incident, it breached our terms of conditions and the driver lost their access to the app. And we immediately reported this to TFL.
Well, hugging a passenger, you don't describe that as any kind of sexual assault?
That is in breach of our terms of conditions. And so in this event, we reported it to TFL.
The thing is, it's not just this one incident, is it? Because TFL, Transport for London, have said that your delays reporting crimes to the police are totally unacceptable.
I don't get where the how can she's just said it's not for TFL to determine what is and isn't a crime, and yet she's saying your delays in reporting a crime to the police. Well, you just said they're incompetent to determine what is and what isn't a crime, yet they are competent to report the crime to the police. This isn't making sense.
What do you say to that?
Well, as I say, we have a good working relationship with the police.
If you have such a good working relationship, why have you delayed, in many instances, reporting crimes to the police?
So we have an obligation to report all serious incidents to TFL, which we do.
Incidents now, not crimes.
And with riders, we encourage them to report incidents to the police, and we fully support them in doing so and provide all the necessary information for the police to carry out their investigation.
But you shouldn't be just encouraging drivers to report to police. You should be reporting crimes to the police, shouldn't you?
So, some passengers do not wish to report their incidents to the police. We really encourage them to do so. And when they do report them, we provide all the necessary information to the police and cooperate fully in the investigations.
I mean, the other area in which you're accused of not playing by the rules is on employment rights. Why don't you drop that appeal against the employment tribunal that you lost and just guarantee basic employment rights to your drivers right now?
So the...
What? Why is the news reporter trying to... she's trying to impose her will. Obviously, she's been told to ask this question, but she's imposing her beliefs, her will, upon a company that's being run by people who... She's not on the board of directors. She's not on the management team. Is she trying to take some sort of moral... Contractors have been around since the day zero. And then she's trying to just, in a news report, saying, why don't you just call them all employees? Yeah, why don't you make bloody Uber go bankrupt overnight?
The most uninnovative thing about Uber is that the drivers are self-employed. Private hire drivers have been self-employed for decades in the industry. This isn't a thing that's unique to Uber.
Exactly. Correct answer. Well done.
And what drivers tell us is the one thing they value most is the flexibility to be their own boss and choose when and how they work.
Yeah, exactly. You could sit on your ass all day as an Uber driver, or you might say, today I'm going to go out a lot more. So, I think there's a little swipe thing that I saw some guy on YouTube doing a video. You just literally swipe this thing on Uber app and you're online and you're ready to go. And when you don't want to work anymore, you literally swipe it off and say, right, I'm off. So you could have a 5-hour lunch break, you could have a 10-minute lunch break.
So how long do you think that Uber will be on the streets of London then?
Well, look, our priority after the news today is to support those 40,000 licensed drivers that could lose their right to work.
So how long do you think...
we're going to appeal the decision immediately, and our focus is on continuing our service beyond the 30th of September.
So you're confident that you'll have several months more of service?
Well, obviously there's a legal process to run, and it's still very early days. We only got the news today when you did. But we're focusing very hard to support those drivers, and so they continue to use the app while we fight this.
Bingo. So, let's go back to the beginning.
Uber's approach and conduct demonstrate a lack.
The solution I was thinking about is, because this is so legally interwoven with all kinds of, like, Uber's a legal entity, TFL's a legal entity. They're all these like legal agreements, and they, it's like a web of legal mishmash of legal agreements going on, which has bound Uber and their drivers to the will of TFL. And somehow to operate in London, you've got to have a TFL license. And obviously here, to use their own words against them, Uber's not fit to hold a private hire operator's license. Uber's approach and conduct demonstrate a lack of corporate responsibility. Bingo. So let's use that as a basis of starting again. So to take this out of the legal realms, Uber could, you need to link the drivers with the passengers or the riders, whatever they call them. So you need the man as the contractor to link with the man who has a need to go from point A to point B. So that needs to go. Now, obviously, Uber has the tech to do that, but they're probably going to argue the fact that you can't operate within our London limits. So that's fine. So you could actually add a layer here. Now, what I would say, and I've got a lovely picture, is because Uber's been deemed the legal entity, what you want to do, and I just googled Joe Blogs, get a Joe Blogs, flesh and blood man. So, I don't know, pick one. How about Rainbow Vomit Joe Blogs here? So pick Rainbow Vomit Joe Blogs, or you could have a nice suit man here like that, or you could have this guy here. It really doesn't matter. But put like Joe Blogs, this guy down here, put Joe Blogs in charge of the driver contractors operating within city limits. Okay. So all of the Uber app information. So you'd have to have something like an app. Are you whereabouts are you, or something like that? Are you around London? Yes, I'm around London. Bing. So it would divert you to Joe Blogs. So Joe Blogs. Hello, I am Joe Blogs. I'm in charge of operating this service within the city. I dare say the city limits, within Westminster. I'll change it as well. So Westminster, Southwark, and there's another one, which I can't remember. North of the river, south of the river, Westminster, Southwark, and Lambeth. There we are. Westminster, Lambeth, Southwark, and all the surrounding areas that make up the area known as London. Because you remember we've got the City of London. So there could be a presumption here that the City of London is London, or is London really talking about Westminster, the South Bank, all these different component parts? Because obviously London's grown into a super monster. That's huge. So basically, you choose a Joe Blogs to operate as a contractor. So Uber is now contracting out its tech services to Joe Blogs. So all people who like a ride contact Uber in the usual way. Are you at London? Swipe. Yes, I am. So at London or in and around. Are you within the M2? Are you within? Whatever. You have to define it. So are you in this area? Yes. Okay, great. So then it'll divert to Joe Blogs. Hello, I'm Joe Blogs. I am the responsible, unlimited liability man who's in charge of contracting with drivers to get what may have been known as an Uber driver to you. So basically, Uber are out of the picture now, and it's all on the head of one single man, the contractor, who's going to contract out to specific Uber drivers. So it's going to be a man contract to a man contract, which would be this guy, Joe Blogs, so that the driver, Jimmy Smith, whatever, would still get the tech. He'll still have access to the tech that allows the driver to meet with the passenger. And the passenger literally has one more screen to say, are you at London, diverting you to Joe Blogs. Hello, I'm Joe Blogs, finding you a driver now. Bingo, where are you? And essentially the app will operate in the same way, but, do you accept Joe Blogs? Do you accept this service? So you'd have to obviously let the customer know that, A, are you at London? And by the way, Joe Blogs is going to provide this service on behalf of Uber, as Uber is not fit or whatever. It's not fit or proper to do it for you. But, Joe Blogs is, because he's unlimited liability and he's responsible for all actions. And that's a way of basically taking it out of the legal realm. So basically, it's a man-on-man. It's a man-on-man contract. So you've got a contract between the passenger and Joe Blogs here in front of you. Take your pick. And then Joe Blogs provides a contract to the driver to fulfill the contract he has with the passenger or the rider, whatever they call it. So all what's basically doing is Uber are outsourcing to a third-party man contractor who's fully competent, fully liable for all the actions of all those drivers. He's basically taken on the liability of that side of Uber. And obviously, Uber have to discuss and disclose who that person's going to be. But look, here, even a girl, like Joe Blogs, apparently, probably Joanne Blogs. Yeah, so basically they need to find someone who's competent to do that. And then you're taking it out of the realm of legal. The only other facet you've got is the payment type, the currency. So that's still a work in progress for me. But, you can either keep that going on as usual, or you could have, you might have to look at changing the currency. Because if the City of London is doing what it is, and presuming that this is all London now, then guess where the Bank of England resides? Yeah. So you might not be able, they might ban you from this particular area, which if it's the City of London, they have every right to. They might say, right, if Uber comes in here, we're going to stop their car and it's going to be, impounded or something. It's going to be taken as surety for like trespassing on the City of London. Yeah, so you might have to actually say we cannot travel or go through here, as I suspect will be the case, because this is the City of London. But in terms of London, London's a bit wishy-washy. It's this crossroad here, apparently, according to Google. This Trafalgar Square is London. Charing Cross. Oh, it's gone. London's gone. London's gone, everyone. It was there a minute ago. Oh, it's back. Yeah, it's Westminster. It's Southwark. It's Lambeth. Vauxhall. Yeah, all these places are constitute parts. There is no place called London, technically. Technically, there isn't. You have the City of London. So yeah, okay, we won't go here. But in terms of operating all around here on England, this is all England. We're cracking on. We don't need transport for London. Could you please define London for me? Because I'm pretty sure that's Westminster. I'm pretty sure that this is Lambeth. I'm pretty sure up here is Fitzrovia, whatever that is. Marylebone. Is that London? No. And you'll even see when you enter the City of London, it's got City of London on a lamppost. And the moment you cross this street, where's the Royal Courts of Justice? Just here. The moment you cross this bit here, all the street lights go to City of Westminster. So yeah, I know we've been calling it London all this time, and it's all very hip. But believe it or not, that's all Westminster. So that's my snap review as to what the Uber drivers can do. Now, whether Uber, obviously it's a waste of time appealing. Just stop doing that. You've got legals involved in yourself, so they're going to obviously poo-poo everything I say, because there's no, I've done this for free. And they're going to make shit tons of money out of billable hours, stitching you up. But in terms of the drivers, if you're a driver and you're concerned about this, I'd write directly to whoever's made the decision, yeah? Stop thinking TFL have made the decision. You go to Google, you go CEO TFL, and you go, here we are, there's a guy. There's quite a few of them. So, managing director not for London Underground. So you need to find the guy for whoever's made the decision. There's some names there. You just find out who's made the decision. Phone them up. So who's in charge of the decision for? Chairperson. Yeah, CEO. Again, it's coming up with this guy, Leon Daniels. Yeah. So you write to the man, not dear TFL. Like Uber is not competent or proper to be a private hire operator license. Yeah, because it's a legal entity. I think that's a completely accurate statement. And then they're going about Uber's approach to conduct demonstrate a lack of corporates, because they're talking about the corporate person, the fiction, responsibility in relation to a number of issues which have potentially public. Corporations cannot harm the public in any way, shape, form or other. So get the licensing contract out of the corporation's hands and give it to any one of these diamond geezers here, and just use them as the liability magnet to allow all the operators to operate as normal. And obviously you have to fully just put, an extra 2 swipes on the phone saying, are you at and around Westminster? That'd be good. Are you in and around Westminster? Yes, I am. Okay, great. Do you accept us diverting you to Joe Bloggs to complete this this request? Yes. Okay, lovely. You are now contracting directly with Joe Bloggs. Oh, really? Am I? Hello, I'm Joe Bloggs. I'm finding you a driver now, and it just just however their operation works, it operates as normal. And then Uber has no liability in that. Well, it's not they don't have no liability. It's just that they're obviously not fit to have any kind of liability in terms of what they're defined as their operator's license. But I hope that kind of gives an idea of how you have to take it. If you want to play these legal games and play legal games and do appeals and do legal and go to court for 5 years, have all these people, 40,000 people, all sitting around scratching their heads going, why can't I earn money? Yeah, anyway. If you are an Uber driver, you have my sympathies. This is going to be a faff.